What's up, guys? Wanted to do a video today talking about what I think is probably the best all-around aiming method, if you will, for bow hunting, and how you can get to that point depending on where you're at in your advancement level or just your level of shooting in general. So stick around and let's jump right into it. So in the trad world, you kind of have two different sides of the camp. You've got competition guys on one side, and you've got your good old boys and your bow hunters on the other side. And when it comes to aiming styles, you can usually break that up into, well, aimers and instinctive guys for the most part. And I know that's broad speak because there's guys on both sides that kind of do a mixture of everything too, which I think if you're open-minded, especially to what I'm getting ready to talk about, I think if you're open-minded to, utilizing some of the takeaways from each side, I think that you can really find yourself being much more versatile as a bow hunter and much more consistent as well. Granted, it's all in what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to go out and dot shoot, shoot tournament, shoot comp, you're gonna want to implement an aiming style. It's what makes sense. You're shooting for score. You're trying to hit specifically exactly what you're aiming at, for a point system. You're not going to want to just be pulling back and flinging arrows. But whenever it comes to shooting whitetails, or any animal for that matter, if there's one thing that's for sure about animals is they're going to move. They don't sit still for very long. Not always very conducive to a slow, tedious aiming process. But I think that you can still effectively take away from both sides and end up with what to me is probably the most versatile aiming style that you can use, and that is the Howard Hill split vision style of aiming, or what some guys nowadays are calling gap stinctive. Gap stinctive it's kind of a nomenclature, like a street slang at this point, I think. But essentially, the split vision and the gap stinctive, it's kind of one and the same. What split vision is you are still pretty well aware of where the tip of your arrow is for your left and right. You're still, trying to get that arrow right underneath your eye so you can sight down that arrow and use it for your left and right reference. But you've just kind of stopped paying so much attention to where the arrow is up and down based on yardage. And if you start shooting gap, I will say that once you've done it long enough and you've shot gap for long enough, whether you like it or not, you're going to kind of turn into a gap stinctive shooter, because you're going to find yourself just kind of forgetting about, oh, I need to hold my arrow, this far below target and whatever. And you're just going to find yourself lining up the arrow like you normally would. You kind of know how far away you are, and muscle memory is going to end up taking over the rest. But if you use that gap shooting system as a vehicle to get there, I think it could really help you as a bow hunter. Whether you want to count on the gap system for hunting or not, I still think gap system works for hunting. Don't get me wrong, especially if you use a rangefinder, and coupled with a rangefinder, that's probably going to be your best overall bet there. But I haven't really used a rangefinder in well over 15 years of bow hunting. Harvested a lot of animals with a bow without ever using a rangefinder. It's just an extra step that doesn't really benefit me. Even when I hunted with a compound, it really hasn't benefited me, and it's always paid me way more dues and just being able to accurately estimate range within reason to the target. And this is where the guys, if I'm trying to appease guys from both sides of this is where you have to remember, when you're shooting at deer, you're not trying to smoke a 12 ring. You're just not. Like if I was shooting at this hog back here with the IBO score system on it, you know, I'm trying to hit that little bitty 4 centimeter dot, right? I don't care about that with a deer. I don't care about that with anything that I'm trying to hunt. Do I want to hit right where I'm aiming? Yes, that's always the ultimate goal. But you're shooting at a kill zone. You know, you're shooting at vital organs. You're shooting at lungs on like a white-tailed deer, or this big. You know, an entire rib cage. If you hit in the rib cage within reason, you're going to harvest that animal, and that animal is going to die relatively quickly. A little bit of up, down, left, right variance, especially when your adrenaline's up, that's okay, because if you've done your reps on the range and you kind of allow that muscle memory and that training to take over, you're still going to be able to, more than likely, you know, if you do your part right, then you're going to be able to pull off the shot and you're going to harvest that animal. But you're not trying to shoot 12 rings. It's just not realistic, because animals move. Like I said, they duck the string, they take steps forward, you know, and it's at an unknown range. Yeah, if it's a 22-yard shot or an 18 or a 12-yard shot, you're more than likely, even if you shoot gap, you're not going to know, I need to specifically exactly have the tip of my arrow right here or right there. What really has helped me is I printed off a picture of a white-tailed deer, and I made, knowing about what my gap is on my bow, it's still important. You're going to need to map out the gap of your bow and the rise and fall of your arrow. That is still going to be very important to help you effectively develop this system of shooting and get you there faster. But I know, based off the gap of this setup, you know, about where I need to hold on a deer height wise, in order to hit pretty darn close to where I'm aiming. Ultimately, muscle memory and training is going to take over, and for every animal I've shot, you know, so far, it's been that way. If you develop that map of your arrow flight, then, like for me, I found out it, let's just say for anything from about 13 to 21, 22-ish yards, if I hold maybe just above the feet on the average size whitetail, that seems like a lot, you know, like a long way to go, but that's kind of what it is. So if I know that they're somewhere within that ballpark, if I draw that arrow back and I know the tip of that arrow is down there around the feet, and I just let the, you know, my shot process and my muscle memory take over, but still paying attention to the left and the right of the arrow. Like I said, I'm not so much caring about the height anywhere as much as I'm caring about the left and right of my arrow. So I'm still sighting down my arrow. I'm still tucking it right up against that leg, or on top, even on the leg of the deer, and going through my process. But I just kind of know, based off of how far away that deer is, where the tip of my arrow needs to be within reason. Now, even still, muscle memory is going to end up taking over, but I'm just saying that if you need to get something to help you bridge that gap and start getting your way towards that effective split vision shooting, that might be a good way to do it, and it works very well for me. Because like I said, if I'm hitting a softball on a white-tailed deer, I'm very happy. You know, that's a dead deer all day long. A dead anything for that matter. Everything, you know, from pigs up to elk or moose. You know, if you're hitting the softball effectively, then you're probably doing pretty good. So that mapping system, and then kind of figuring out on a deer, on an average size deer, about where the tip of that arrow needs to be. Like I said, you don't have to be religious about it. It doesn't have to be exact, but it gets you, it starts getting you there. And if you have a 3D target to shoot at, it can kind of help map that out in your brain as well. And then, like I said, you will get to the point where once you've shot enough, you're going to be not even thinking about where your arrow needs to be, and it's just going to kind of happen. But if I told you I was totally ignoring yardage completely, I would be lying to you, because I still have to know roughly on the yardage. I'm still using my ability to guesstimate range and relying on that quite a bit, because I do want to be pretty accurate. I'm not trying to, use a fixed crawl. I'm not trying to, like I said, hit a 12 ring. I'm trying to hit the kill zone of that deer, and hit the golden triangle, take out the heart and lungs. But I don't need to bust the hair in half that I'm looking at either. I just got to get it close, So if I know within reason how far away that deer is, if I know that he's somewhere around 15, 20 yards with this setup, if I have the tip of my arrow, if I see in my, peripheral, and my subconscious kind of knows where that arrow needs to be because I know about how far away that deer is, that's all going to be kind of taking care of itself without me really having to think about it. And the rest of the shot's just going to happen. But you still have to use that left and right reference of your arrow and make sure that you're not aiming right underneath the middle of the deer or something like that, even though you're trying to hit right behind the shoulder. So that, to me, if you're able to bridge those two worlds, like I said, because you really need, in my opinion, to help you map it out and to be a lot more comfortable with it and to give you something to practice and a way to kind of start building that process, you're going to need to take some from that competition side of the world. The form is still extremely important. I don't care how you shoot. Those guys got the form down. They're rock stars at the form, so the good form to keep you consistent, to keep you honest, so that that part of the machine is taking care of itself whenever your adrenaline is up. The gap system, knowing the flight of your arrow and being able to map that with the gap system, so then you kind of have something to work off of. Then knowing the left where your arrow is, paying attention to the tip of your arrow for your left and your right, and maybe practice on a piece of duct tape on cardboard, a piece of vertical duct tape, so you get used to what your arrow should look like directly below a spot. Because if you suffer from like blurry vision and stuff like that, you might struggle a little bit even with just trying to make sure that arrow is directly below the spot. So that's where I say this stripe with the tape might help you with that. And then after that, then you're going to be able to start pulling from the bow hunter side of things, the good old boys that just shoot instinctive. You're going to be able to start pulling from that, of focusing on the spot. And that's why I'm shooting right now. I've started shooting, even though we're still in the middle of the season, I've started shooting at little pieces of tape just on my bail target, because yeah, shooting at 3D targets helps, but ultimately deer are different sizes. They're different distances away. You can only get so close. So if you hone in on the ability to be able to see a spot and hit the spot, even with that split vision or gap instinctive style, then you're going to really start to shape what, like I said, to me is the most effective and efficient means of aiming for a bow hunter. So I can look at the spot on that deer and burn a hole through the deer, looking at that spot, and focus on that. Pay attention to the left and right of my arrow. I kind of know how far away the deer is, kind of know where the tip of my arrow needs to be, but because I've practiced that, my brain has already taken care of that. My brain already knows that deer is about 15, 20 yards. The tip of the arrow is going to be somewhere down around the feet. My subconscious is already talking all that over with itself, and that's going to be taken care of. And then after that, you're going to be in the wheelhouse, and you just need to focus on that spot and focus on pulling through your back and breaking that shot clean. Guys, if you can figure out a way to blend those things together, and whatever path you need to take to get there, like I said, that's just what works for me, and I really think it will work for you. I think you're really going to find yourself in the deer woods or out on the mountain. You're going to find yourself feeling a lot better about, one, not needing a rangefinder if you're used to shooting gap or a crawl or something like that as a trad guy in the woods. It drives me nuts seeing guys having to hit the rangefinder constantly whenever you need to just be flinging arrows. You're going to find yourself having to do less of that and more of just I know about how far away it is. That's game on. Now I just need to do my part. So anyway, guys, I hope that's helpful to you. That's the method that I use for bow hunting. Like I said, totally different if I'm out trying to shoot a score or something like that. But for bow hunting, if you can master the split vision style shooting or the gap stinctive and find a way to blend everything together, you're really going to turn yourself into an ultimate predator with a stick bow, and you're going to be one killing machine. So anyway, guys, I know this was a long one, so I appreciate you hanging with me. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that. Like this video, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys want to see. I'm going to keep dropping the polls like I've been doing and try to give you guys what you want as much as I can. Give the power to the people. And also, guys, share the channel. If you got to know other guys that shoot stick bow, maybe grab the link to my channel and shoot that over to them so they can enjoy the fun too. So anyway, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your subscribes and your support. Stay safe, shoot straight. I'll catch you next time.